I'm going to ask for you guys to describe any maybe company policies or FAA policies or procedures that maybe influenced when you chose to get pregnant, if that was a choice, or how that impacted the entire process for you guys. Go ahead.
I'll go first. So back when I started my family, it was there weren't very many female pilots, much less pilot moms. And so I pretty much dedicated most of my career to improve some of the policies in our industry for work-family balance and specifically pilot moms. So I can tell you at my airline, I'm very proud of the fact that we just got a new contract, our pilot working agreement, which includes 12 weeks of paid maternity leave for new pilot moms after delivery. And up to a year after delivery of an unpaid bonding leave, during which time the pilot retains healthcare benefits, and the company paid premiums for healthcare. And so this is a really huge improvement to the policies that used to exist when I became a mom. When a pilot becomes pregnant, she has the choice to release herself from duty immediately. So if you have a high risk pregnancy or you went through IVF or you're older or whatever, you can stop flying immediately as long as you have a pregnancy notification form filled out with a doctor's signature and a due date, and you will continue to get paid while on maternity leave. The pay comes from any earned sick leave. And then when that's exhausted, you use any earned unused vacation. When that's exhausted, you can go out on your disability benefits, which are 50% of your pay, plus this other insurance we have. So you're basically getting your normal full pay during the pregnancy. And then again, after delivery, there's up to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. And then you can go out on the unpaid leave if you choose to stay out for bonding and breastfeeding, that sort of stuff.
Awesome. Thanks.
Oh, for the dudes. We also have 2 weeks of paid parental leave for new dads.
Fabulous. Awesome. Anybody else want to share policies, experiences, influencing?
28 years ago, we didn't have any of that. So that's why I didn't tell them I was in labor on the plane. I was afraid we wouldn't be able to jump seats or go anywhere. So I just kept my mouth shut. But now it's very similar to your situation. Very similar. Things have definitely evolved.
That's awesome.
In the Air Force, in my squadron, I had to worry about possible deployment. And so I didn't want to choose a time where then I could have a child and then leave and be deployed. So when I knew I had a time frame when I was going to exit active duty, I knew it was a good time to have children. So that's how my husband and I decided on timing for children. But the policies in the Air Force and industry now are much better than they were. At Flight Safety, it's a great company to work for, and they have really good policies. But what I was about to say was that I do teach a lot of clients from foreign countries, and some of these foreign countries learning to fly the Black Hawk also have women pilots. And recently, there were women pilots from the Philippines and Brunei asking about policies that we incorporate for women in the United States and in their flying, and how to incorporate pregnancy in that. So I gave them as much information as I could to help them build on their policies.
It's fantastic.
It's interesting.
How about you, Megan? How about NetJets?
As these ladies just mentioned, policies are getting so much better. I know we are working on one as well. We're not quite there yet. But one of the things that I went through and we went through for a long time is we had issues with infertility for a long time. So that didn't necessarily, give us timing of when we would actually happen. We were just trying to make it happen for about 6 years before we actually went through fertility treatments in order to get pregnant the first time. So at the time, there weren't any policies, but at the same time, I was actually working for Flight Safety at the time as a ground and sim instructor so that we could start a family, so that I was home at night. And, we had a little bit more flexibility with the schedule at the time. This was all before I started for NetJets. So policies are definitely improving, which is nice to see that recognition. Because several countries, you go any other country and it's a totally different policy for maternity and paternity leave. So
I want to piggyback on that and what Kim said. I've worked with our union, which is called the ALPA, Airline Pilots Association, and I've also been part of an international IF ALPA group of women. I forget what we called ourselves, women's working group. And I was working with like 20 women from 40 different countries, 40 women from 20 different countries. And it was interesting to me that so many countries have different policies. So for example, when we were talking about pregnancy, and that was a big deal to me, one of the women said, "Why is that a big deal?" And I said, "Where are you from?" And she was from Germany or Canada, where they can have up to 2 years off paid, including for the fathers. So in this country, it is a struggle. In the commercial world, more so than the military world. The military world, it can affect your progression of advancement because of taking the time off. But in the commercial world, you don't get paid. And that's a bigger problem, in my opinion. Like Megan, my husband and I went through years of infertility before we adopted. And so when people, especially young women, ask me about family planning, I say, don't worry about the career. Plan your family and do what's best for you and your family. And then find out how to accommodate that with your career, because you never know, whether you're going to get pregnant today or adopt in 5 years.
That's great advice. I also love that we can be in a hangar and we're just listening and nobody's even phased by the engine run-ups that are happening. They're just like, yep, normal background noise. You couldn't tell. Awesome. So I've got another that's, I think Kim kind of answered already. I see Nate's hand up. I'll give him, he can be patient. So when in your career did you choose to have children, or did you have children? And do you feel like that was a good time, a bad time? Is there a time that you think maybe would have been a little smoother?
I've only had one planned. My first one wasn't planned. My second one was twins. That was planned, but I got 2 for 1 that time. Didn't
go.
Totally natural. And then Caroline, I've always called her the oops, because the twins were only 5 months old when I found out I was pregnant with her. So I have a 3-layer cake and she's the icing. So yeah, nothing really planned. Just happens.
Well, I always wanted to have children, but I didn't marry my husband until I was 32. He was 27. So we decided we would start a family right away. At the time, I was furloughed from my current airline. And then when we started to try to have kids, it didn't work out for us. So it took quite a while. And then eventually we adopted.
I would also say what you were talking about earlier is, plan your life, do what you want to do. If you really want to keep flying and doing that kind of stuff, that will find a way to work itself out, or you will find a way to make it work. So, we tried for several years and thankfully we did not give up, but, anything that we could possibly do, we were looking at adopting, we were looking at every option, and then it ended up happening for us. So, and I ended up with twins. I don't think they're buy one, get one free either. It's double duty. So yeah, just, do your life the way you want to do it, and things will, you'll find ways to make things work.
In my opinion, having a family is more fulfilling than a pilot career, and it's part of the fulfillment of being a woman, and it's wonderful to have a family. And yeah, you might have some setbacks, not make rank, not be able to go to the deployment you're supposed to, but it will find a way, and it helps to have support from your family.
Awesome. I might give that a moment as we lead into our next question so you guys can hear me. I know. That's okay. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm going to ask you guys some questions while we wait. How many of you guys are children of pilots in the audience? Raise your hand. Wow. That's it. There's 2 of you. Wow. Okay. So that being said, I'm a little surprised. And you kind of led into the next question really nicely for me too. How do you guys arrange your schedule with your partners in order to manage childcare? Do you have a nanny? Did you ever use family support? Was it just the 2 of you? What did that look like for each of you?
My husband worked 6 days a week, like 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So he was home every night. And for about 10 years, I didn't even own a UPS suitcase. I never went on layovers. I would go to work at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd fly somewhere, have dinner, and fly home. And that's the way I did it. And the trips were really nice. They left the latest in the afternoon. They got back the earliest in the evening. So management would take them from me. I get paid to stay home. And I worked 7 days a month for years and years and years and years. I bypassed upgrading, put the family first. I've always put the family first. I've never chose work over the family. I didn't upgrade when I first could because I realized I was pregnant and I thought I better be a senior first officer than a junior captain. And then I waited about 13 more years before when Caroline started grammar school is when I went through upgrade to captain. And I flew trips where I only worked when she was in school. And it worked out. You do what you have to do. That's what it comes down to.
Perfect.
My husband is not a pilot, so I kind of had a situation like yours, except that as his career progressed, he needed to travel, and he ended up traveling more than I traveled. He was a 360 on Delta Airlines, which means he spent a lot of time in China and other countries. So the way we did it was I stayed senior. I stayed in the right seat for 18 years, and I regret that, and I don't encourage you to do what I did. But at the time, I made a deal with my husband that I would stay senior and put the family first, because then it gave me control of my schedule. For example, when I flew the 717 for 8 years, I was number 2 in category. I always got what I wanted. And when the kids were super little, we lived in base and I flew turnarounds, which is an out and back. And so I was home every night. We had everything from live-in nannies to part-time nannies, after-school nannies. And then we also had plan B, C, and D because I did not have family around to help out. So for example, I have a nanny, but she's got to go home at night. So when we had our second kid, my husband was a little worried about the stress it would take to have a toddler and an infant. I said, don't worry, honey, we'll get another nanny. So we had a daytime nanny while he was at work, and we had a nighttime nanny to help him with the 2 kids for 3 hours before he went to bed and they went to bed. And then eventually when I upgraded, and the reason I say don't hold yourself back is because being a captain is really awesome. Not only do you get paid a lot more, but it's just such a great job. So I'm really glad I finally upgraded to captain. And now that my kids are grown and gone, I've gone back to flying full time and, upgraded to international. And now I'm doing all the cool things that I always wanted to do, but I waited to do because I wanted to put my family first and make sure I was there for all the things that they needed me there for.
So thank you.
So I would say, can you repeat the question one more time?
I absolutely can. Just what?
Okay.
Yeah. What's your family life look like?
Yeah. So our situation was a little bit interesting. When I found out I was pregnant with twins, I started looking at other options for what I could do and still fly and, or not fly and still, keep the income coming in and things of that nature. My husband was working full time. And the management position came up within NetJets in our training department. And since training had been my background, I'd been a sim and ground instructor for several years before that. It was really one of my passions. I applied for it and I got it. I was super excited. So I already lived in Columbus, which was one of the requirements to actually be a management pilot, is you had to live at headquarters or be willing to move to headquarters. But since I already lived there, it was perfect fit for me. So I started working in the office, which allows me to also work from home, but then I could still fly. And I had a very nice, varied schedule. But then at the same time, so the boys, so I had the boys at the end of February, and then we found out less than a month later that my husband was getting laid off. So it was like one thing after another, and we were just getting overwhelmed, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because then he tried to be a stay-at-home dad and found out that he loved it. And it really has been working for us. So he's been home with the boys since they were born, pretty much. And that's just something that has worked for us. I know that doesn't always work for everybody, but thankfully my career with NetJets has allowed us income-wise to be able to support a single income family. So that was one thing that was really important for us, is to be able to make sure that we'd still be able to pay our bills and be able to have a family life balance like that. So that helps me when I go on the road and when I go fly. Since I'm still in management, I can kind of pick and choose my schedule to some extent. I kind of fill in when they need extra support, or, it's a busy weekend or a holiday weekend, especially during the Thanksgiving holiday is usually our biggest weekend. So I'll go out and fly, but I know I don't have to worry about childcare at home because I know my husband's there. So it's been really helpful for me to be able to continue growing my career, but also still be able to have that family balance and be home most nights, and be able to make my schedule that way. So
Awesome. Thanks. What about you, Kim?
Yeah, it's all about working as a team with your partner, your husband, in order to best care for your family and your kids, right? So when I was in the Air Force, I had 2 toddlers, and my husband had agreed to move where I would move and help out. He was a CFI at the time, working his way with his instructor hours. He's also a pilot. And I agreed after my active duty service commitment was over, I would take a break from flying, and we would move to where his new regional jet job was. So he got on with GoJet Airlines, and he got into management so he could spend more time with the kids at home and us. And so we had our young family. And as his schedule got more busy, we ended up moving back to Florida here. I got a job. It's expensive. You need to pay your bills. And we did daycare, aftercare, after school care. And as he traveled more and more, one of the difficulties was that I had my job and I had my time with the kids, and it worked fine. But as he was away so much, there was a little bit of feeling that maybe he felt that maybe they shouldn't be in aftercare, and I need to go pick them up a little earlier. So we had a little controversy there. But we realized that I couldn't make up time with the kids that he was missing. And there was a little bit of misconception about time and relationships with the kids. So he cut back on hours a little bit, spent more time with the kids, and he built his relationship. I built my relationship. So it's an individual thing, but you definitely have to work together as a family, and appreciate all your support. The nannies, the grandparents, put in a word for them. They helped out a lot through the years.
Nice. And that's great to hear so many different options of what you guys can look forward to. And you have a lot of choices going forward. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you.
I even reached out to my aunt and uncle at one point. They wanted to take a vacation in Florida, help me with the kids. It worked out. They got out of the cold weather and came down to Florida for a while. And I went away to my Air Force job. But yeah,
perfect. Win-win.
One other thing I wanted to add as well is one of the other nice things, and there's other lady pilots at NetJets as well, is we're home based. So a lot of people have chosen to change their base. We can actually change our base every 7 days if you want to. So that's one thing that is kind of a benefit for us, is you can live where you want. And so I know of a lot of people that, they're starting to plan a family, so they move back where family is, that they have that support structure. So I don't have any family in Columbus. Like I said, I'm originally from the Seattle area. My husband's from England. So we don't have a support structure within the US, other than we've created a support structure, if you will. Our neighbors are basically like our extended family now. So that really helps us. But that's one thing that I've always appreciated about corporate, is the fact that you can essentially home base most places.
Another thing I want to add is I've got a lot of female pilot friends that have kids all about the same age. And we've all had different situations, family in town, no family in town. But everybody I know that has children and flies, all the childcare situations you put yourselves in, it never stays. You think you've got to figure it out, and then a year later it changes and you got to figure something else out. So what do you think? I I must have went through like 3 or 4 different babysitters. I only needed a babysitter for like 2 hours in an afternoon. And they went through nannies, and just be ready for a change all the time. Always think about something in the back of your head. Like if this one doesn't work out, you've got something else.
Yeah, that's that B, C, and D plan, right? There's no one magic recipe for everybody.
And never steal a babysitter from your sister. That doesn't work out too well.
Nice. That's so funny.
Have a sister who doesn't have any kids that wants to share your children too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, always look for ways to pay each other back, to help each other and build those networking opportunities. Don't be afraid to ask, but also don't be afraid to offer.
Well, I think I'm going to do one more, and Michelle, tell me if this is okay. I'm going to do one more question. And then because I know I have a couple students that probably have to get to class, I'm going to take a couple of questions and then we'll go back. Okay. So everybody took time off after they had or adopted their child. What was it like coming back to flying after kind of putting on the mom hat that was new?
I actually flew better. Like when I had like 30 days off or 6 months off. My first one, I took 6 months. With the twins, I took 2 or 3. And I think with Caroline, I just took 2. I actually always felt like I don't know if I was trying to pay attention more, but I always felt like I performed. But you have to go back to training. So I didn't have any issues with it.
Awesome.
I would say the same. I've taken time off in my career several times for other things, including medical, and it comes back like that because we're so trained by the time we get to where we are.
I sleep a lot better at overnights now. I get more rest on the road than I do when I'm at home. So, but honestly, coming back into to flying and snapping back into it, really, again, like these ladies have said, it really wasn't it was no big deal. I think all the training programs at most of these are robust enough that it's easy enough to roll right back into what you were doing before. So,
I was a little different. I might have taken a little bit more time off, but honestly, I was intimidated since I did take a lot of time off. I was going into an instructor job, and I felt I was expected to know a lot more than I did, maybe have a lot more experiences than I had accrued through the time I had off. And I was intimidated, but I realized I can still be a positive member of the instructor team and be a good listener, take other people's experiences and teach based upon that. So I was intimidated, but I overcame that within 6 months to a year when I realized I could do what I was doing.
I want to add something. I missed my kids like crazy when I had to go back to work. I didn't expect that to be as bad as it was. Because I really missed flying. I love flying, and I would plan to come back to flying after we had our kids. But when I actually had to go back to work after adopting our kids, it was really hard to go to work. So I want to acknowledge that. And what I tell gals who go through that, because it happens to most of us, if not all of us, is the truth is, I think I missed my kids more than they missed me. and that eventually, you know, the more I went back to work, the more I provided a routine for all of us, then it got better.
That's good advice. Perfect. So I'm gonna open it up. If anybody has some questions, we have a microphone up here. If you guys want to walk up and ask a couple.
Hi, my name is Lisette Longoria. I'm 25 years old. I'm also a veteran. My first question is that with the new pilots coming in, female pilots specifically, do you see them not having kids because they're kind of like, you know, intimidated or they're a little scared? What have you seen so far?
I'll take that because I've been around a while. In the 18 years that I flew as an FO before upgrading to captain, I only flew with 4 lady captains. One was married, no kids. One was divorced, no kids. One was single, no kids. And one was, did I get all that? There were 4. Well, one was married to another pilot with 2 kids. And what I learned from that experience was the generation before me truly had to choose between family or career. And 3 of those 4 chose the career. They did not have a family. Most of my generation and Maura's, we thought we could have it all, but there was a sacrifice. We had to stay senior, give up the upgrades, you know, pay a fortune for childcare and other sacrifices that I believe my male counterparts, my peers, my age group did not make. The generation I'm seeing coming in now, oh my gosh, they're upgrading within 5 years. They're married, they're having kids, they're getting the major job, and they come in with kids already that they had at the regionals. So I think that myth, that paradigm that you can't have it all is completely busted with the next generation.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I do still see a little bit of societal pressure for young women to progress in their careers, not just a pilot career, doctor, lawyer, whatever else that people are interested in. And there's a lot of division in thought of what people are expected to do. I think as young women, and there's a lot of societal pressure, maybe not to have kids. So I think people have to watch that and make sure you have a balanced future.
Because it's getting to the point where I'm actually kind of considering like getting my tubes tied because, I'm a little scared of, even though I'm still pretty young, I'm scared of like, what could happen then. And, will I have to sacrifice a lot? And
yeah, and it's not as hard as people make it out to be sometimes. And there's always a pathway, always a way forward. And I think, not taking a chance on family sometimes is a detriment to yourself, your future, your family, and maybe even the future society. I think we need to.
I wouldn't make any drastic decisions at 25 years old.
No.
yeah,
still
I'm giving
very
myself
young,
a couple,
very
like a
young.
decade, but still, you never like that's what scares me, and that's why I'm here asking.
I've heard young people say, "I don't even want a boyfriend. I got so much work to do, get A's and B's. I got my workout schedule. I got things to do that are busy sometimes, but they're not taking that opportunity to enjoy life a little bit. It's not all just progress. You need to balance, have a fulfilling life.
It'll work its way out.
I would say also there's so many resources these days that, you've got Facebook groups, you've got all sorts of social media groups where you can ask questions. Everybody has a different story and different things that have worked for them. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you, don't make any drastic decisions, because I was kind of in that same mindset where early on, I was super focused on a career and this is what it was going to be. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to do any of that kind of stuff. And then things just happen. So just don't make any harsh decisions until you know that that's what you really, really want to do. But there are ways, obviously, to make things happen. It's just asking questions like you are right now, which is perfect.
And it's good to enjoy your life with your hobbies, your studies, your academics, your future goals. And you might be pleasantly surprised that somebody next to you, be open to opportunity and meeting people. And somebody might have very similar goals and values. And you can, start spending time with that person. It's an opportunity.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Good question, Lizette.
Thanks. I know.
Anybody? I know. I should have known better. Go on, Nate.
Hey ladies, how's it going? I'm Nate. I wanted to ask about paternity leave. You did mention like 2 weeks. Is there anything that's going to be further than 2 weeks or more?
At my company, there's 2 weeks of paid parental leave. So obviously that's for dads, adoptive parents, LGBTQ, surrogacy, and some other family options. In addition, there's also the 1 year of bonding leave, we call it, for any pilot parent who has a child, and that's unpaid, but you do retain your health care and benefits and all that stuff. So a dad can take up to a year off with benefits.
And then the stress that comes with the job, right? For the ones that's staying at home, do you guys actually spend any time, going on any dates?
Oh, great question. I think that's another question coming up though, right?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Nate, I know why Nate's asking these questions, though.
I don't know why you're asking that question, but I'll tell you that oh, good. Congrats. Yeah, I've been married 28 years and that's unusual for pilots because a lot of pilots are divorced. And because it is a stressful job and time away and all that stuff. So in fact, okay, I'll tell a story. I met my husband when I was furloughed, and I took a non-flying job because it paid double the flying jobs available at the time, and I like to eat, and I had a car payment. So I took this job, and I met my husband, and we got married, and we started our family, and then Delta Airlines called me back and said, it's time to come back, and I'm like doing the happy dance. And my husband's like sobbing like a baby because he thinks I'm going to be gone all the time, and we just got married, and we're starting our family. Yeah. And I said, sweetheart, if you don't want me to go back, I won't, because I love you that much. But I will always regret it. And I will always resent you for making me make that decision. So he said, okay, well, let's work it out. So that's what marriage is, right? So I explained to him that what he didn't know that I already knew was in his job, he's not a pilot, that the harder you work, they reward you with more work. I said, in the airlines where I work, the more senior you are, the more you get paid and the more time off you get. Don't try to understand it. It makes no sense, but this is how it works. So I made him the deal that I would stay senior and put the family first because I'd already been there and I knew how it worked. So he agreed to that. And that's why I stayed in the right seat for 18 years until my baby went off to college. And then I finally upgraded and blah, blah, blah. Did I answer your question? And in the meantime, we do date nights. We do, you know, even though we had a nanny, we get a babysitter for the Friday, Saturday night, so we could have date nights and that sort of thing.
I say what's really important in a marriage is making sure that you continue to date. Somebody told my husband and I that very early on, and it has stuck with us. So we have a weekly Wednesday night date night, which tonight's date night. So
In Daytona Beach.
but this is like a 3-day date night right now because our kids are at home. But yes. So we've been married 13 years now. 14 years now. Who's counting? We met in flight school. And then he gave up his career so that I could continue flying. So that to me was the ultimate sacrifice. Was that he was still working on his private. I was a CFI at the time. And so he's like, you know what, at the time it was 2007, 2008. I'm sure most of you remember that, the entire financial structure just collapsed. So nobody was hiring. There was nothing out there. I couldn't even get a job banner towing. It was crazy. So I was a CFI. He was a student pilot at the time and said, you know what, I'm going to stop, spending all of our money. You continue flying and I will, figure something else out. So, but that's something that we've worked on for our entire marriage so far is that we try to have a weekly date night. One of the nice things about our scheduling, and I know everybody's got a different scheduling way of doing things, is our 7-and-7 schedule allows that kind of thing. Again, I'm in management, so I'm on a different level when it comes to that. But most of our pilots are doing a 7-and-7 schedule. So they have a set schedule for the entire year if they choose to leave it that way. So there are ways to kind of control that so that you're when you're on the road, but when you're going to be home. And so that you can keep that consistency and you can, keep that relationship because it's hard. Most people I fly with too, they're divorced a couple times, or, I know a couple people who've been married a really, really long time. And it's very rare in this industry, unfortunately, but it's one thing that we keep first. We make sure that we're communicating. FaceTime and all the different technologies that are out there really help with that as well. I fly a lot of international too, and being able to have an international, connection as far as phone helps that as well with even the time zone changes and things like that. So it's just something if you prioritize that and that becomes like the most important thing to you, that you maintain that relationship first and foremost with your spouse or your partner or whoever that may be, that will serve you a long time. And that'll also make a huge difference for your kids because they will see that and they will see that relationship that you are putting first. Is another thing that someone told me, and it sticks with me every time, is you raise kids to leave, but your spouse stays with you for life. So putting them first before everything else. Everybody always, they always get hyped up about, oh, what are the kids going to do? What's changing? What's happening with their lives? But what about your spouse or your partner? You got to put them first if your family is going to stay strong. So that's one thing that we really try to maintain.
And that's tough for a mom to do sometimes. But you had a 2-part question. The first part
was the paternity one, and the second one was like the dating stuff. Yeah.
Educate yourself on the job before you get the job, on the policies. When you go to an interview, they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them, and you find out how the company is going to be for their policies. Dads are important. Paternity leave is important, and dads sometimes downplay their importance within a family, but they're very important part of the family. And date nights are important. My husband's a pilot. He's on a 2-week on, 2-week off rotation. And it's challenging for the kids and their relationship with him, but and for my relationship as well. But keeping them first and foremost, planning ahead, date nights, Skyping, FaceTime, and having trust in the relationship and clear communications on, enjoying their trips through their eyes, not wishing that you were going to be on that trip or being jealous. you know, each
That's
of you,
gonna happen. That's definitely
each of
gonna
you makes a choice,
Yeah.
and you, when you really care about a person, you're caring about their experiences and their happiness. So that's what you have to keep in mind.
Or do you have anything you wanted to add? I saw you.
The only thing I could really stress is living in domicile is huge. To be able to be home as much as possible. Like, I mean, I might fly into Louisville, Kentucky, and I might have 5 or 6, 7, 8 jump seaters in the back. And when we hit the ground in Louisville, I'm home in 20 minutes. And some of them have to go to the airport, beg for a ride to Dallas or Colorado or somewhere, you know, and being home is, you know, you just try and be there as much as possible. So living in domicile, especially a mom, you know, I mean, I highly recommend it. I have a lot of female pilot friends that have kids the same age, and they do not live in domicile, and, you know, and things don't always go so well at home when you don't live in domicile. And the other thing with the spouse, we have a lot of long layovers, 24 hours, 72 hours. And I admit I have a good time on those layovers. I see the world. I meet friends. I hang out with my crew. And when you come home, you just don't really want to just go, hey, honey, guess what?
But come home rested. That's
Yes.
important and ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have a spouse that wants you to go out in the world and have fun and do what you love. But you don't always have to be so, you know, guess what I did, you know? I went to St. Andrews and had to play golf, you know.
Don't hide it, but don't brag about it.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thanks,
Nate.
Some people are asking if it's better to be with someone who's a pilot or with someone who's not a pilot.
Not.
There's an understanding there. Knowing about the
He's
pilots
home.
and the
He was home every night. You needed to go to bed every night.
It doesn't mean that they can't still enjoy the industry. Like, we still go fly for fun and from time to time. Like, I still want him to finish his ratings. As far as my husband, right? Because we were met in flight school. Having that interest, I think, is definitely an understanding of what you're doing is important too, so that they have, you know, maybe sometimes empathy for some of the overnights that are not so fabulous. But it's you know, having that understanding and knowing what to expect, I think, is important. But I think it's tough. A 2-pilot family, and I know people do it, but it's tough. And that's one of the other reasons that we had that whole discussion before we got married, that, you know,
You
this is
can't help
probably
who
a
you
good
fall
idea.
in love with.
But yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You fall in love with the pilots, you fall in love with the pilots.
And you got to make sure that there's not going to be resentment going forward for what you decide that you give up. Depending on which spouse gives some things up.
My answer is my ex-husband was a pilot. So there, we often joke about, you know, pilot stereotype, right? They're very confident, type A. They have big heads and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, is there room for 2 of those in one marriage? In my case, no. But really the real question is, according to what's the lean-in gal's name? Sherry, the CEO, the Facebook CFO. I forget her name, but anyway, she said that one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your career is who you partner with, your life partner, your spouse. And so whether or not it's a pilot doesn't matter as much as whether or not they support you in what you do. And I happen to marry my second husband, who is very supportive of me in my career. And I think that's why we've stayed married as long as we have.
And to follow on with having 2 pilot parents, just briefly, just because the parents are pilots doesn't mean the kids are going to take interest in flying. That sometimes happens, sometimes not. And that's something that parents will understand.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. We have one more. I'm going to just say that it is 3:50. So if anybody has a 4:00 class that they have to get to, I just want to, if we have a little bit of an exodus, that would probably be why. But go ahead, Maddie.
Hello, my name is Maddie. You guys briefly all kind of talked about how you either had like a nanny or a babysitter majority of the time. When doing that, did you guys feel kind of like a disconnect from your kids' relationship, or that it was like you're comparing yourself to other families who are home majority of the time. Did you feel like your relationship with your children were not as great?
I was home a lot. I did turns. I mean, I didn't go back to flying any kind of trips until she was, more into school age. And I didn't go back to the international side of flying until she was a student here. So she's over there shaking her head, but we might have a difference of opinion. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I dropped a lot of trips when my kids were little because my husband was working and had benefits, so I was able to do that. But I used to joke about when I had so much time off that my girlfriends would say, "What about Friday to go to the pool?" And I'd say, "Oh no, I have to go to work." And they're like, "I didn't know you work." So on the other hand, every so often I would come home and my kid would call me the nanny's name, which was Krista, which is kind of close to Christina. But it broke my heart at the time. But when you think about it, I was on a 3-day trip and the nanny is a live-in full-time nanny who takes care of my kids who don't go to school yet. So of course that name comes out of their mouth. The truth is we had fabulous nannies. One of them stayed with us over 10 years. I had to let her go when my youngest was 18 years old, driving herself to high school and gone all day with water polo and everything else. And we had changed her description from nanny to home manager to sex police, drug police. And then finally, I just had to let her go. But the truth is our nannies were part of the family. And so they were so important to us. They were like having grandma there every day. So I don't think there was any rivalry or bitter feelings about the fact that she was there and that close to my children, because that's why I hired her and that's what I expected her to do.
My kids are still pretty young, and they go to the babysitters once a week. So it's not a long drawn out process or anything like that as far as that. So every once in a while, I'll get the little, the sobs and things like that when they, want me there or something like that. But honestly, like the relationship that they have built with our neighbors that take care of them on a weekly basis is it's like they're like grandma and grandpa to them. And then the kids that watch them are like their brothers and sisters. So it's a different relationship, kind of like the nanny, where they're part of the family. So I don't feel any remorse because I know that they're instilling the same values that my husband and I would instill as well. And that's important when you're looking for somebody, whether it's a nanny or anybody who's going to watch your kids, is what are they teaching your kids when you're not there? It's amazing what kids will pick up, and 5-year-olds are learning so fast right now. So they start school this fall. So I'm a little nervous, but excited at the same time. So but yeah, that's important, is to make sure the person that you're going to be looking at, and background checking and stuff like that. I know is a big thing these days. So, but yeah, I've never felt any, I guess mom guilt, if you will, if that's what you were asking, more than anything like that. Just because I know it's only once a week for the most part, or 2-3 days while we're here. But they're typically short stints for me when we have the kids somewhere else. But it is a nice welcome break as well. The quiet is wonderful sometimes. So
you might have heard the phrase, "It takes a village." Sometimes it is important to surround the kids with not only the parents, but to get them out socialized before care, after care, VPK. When my husband travels 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, he makes sure he can schedule in advance his schedule and to show up on important events, schools, kids sports, and a variety of different things like that. But you just have to plan ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amelia. I kind of keep on going with the nanny thing. I hope to possibly not marry a pilot, especially after the advice you just gave me. But how did you pick your nanny, right? They are instilling, like you said, the values and the rules of the household, and you're gone and you're not able to monitor that. How are you just able to do an interview and say, okay, yeah, we like you. You can be around my kids 24/7. What was the specific protocol and background that you were looking for when you got a nanny, or family members, right? Were there any family members that you were like, maybe I don't want you around the kids all the time? Was there any of that, and how did you handle that?
I'll take that one since we had nannies the whole time. There's a lot of stories out there about child care horror stories. And I always sit, my first question is, oh, how'd you find her? Well, my cousin's friend's boyfriend's ex needed a job. Well, that's not how you hire a nanny. And the way I looked at it was, this is the most important thing in my life is my kids. And so you want to make sure that they are well cared for and entrusted to someone that you feel that they're going to be safe. And so it's a really, really important process to make sure you hire someone who can fulfill that. I happened to work in human resources when I was furloughed. So I was pretty good at the selection process. So I've done it myself, and I've also hired a nanny agency to do it for me when I didn't have the time to do the screening process. But in a nutshell, you screen hard, you pay well, and you treat them like family. Because no matter how much you pay a pilot, if you don't treat them well, they're not going to give you their best. So that's my advice to anybody finding a nanny. And that's what we try to do. And that's why I had a nanny that wouldn't leave us.
Just to kind of piggyback a little bit, because obviously I don't have a nanny right now, but I was a nanny when I was working on my private pilot's license for a family that had like 7 kids. It was a lot, but when they screened me for the whole process, they went through an entire background check with me. Even though I was only 16 at the time, there wasn't a lot to check, but they wanted to know that I was serious. I was, going to be professional, and I was going to be dependable. Because I was looking after their 2 youngest primarily, and then just making sure that the older kids got off to school and got home okay and all that kind of stuff. So I did everything from meal prep to cleaning the house to making sure the kids are dressed and ready. So just from that perspective, that was a little bit different on my side of things. But yeah, like she was saying, just make sure you're very, very adamant about that screening process so that you get the right people for your kids when you're not there. So
I will add that I had a nanny work agreement that started as a 1-paragraph job description, but ended up about 12 pages, by the time, because they just write themselves, right? You'd think you wouldn't have to tell a nanny not to leave the kid in the car while you run in and get a soda. But that's what happened. And so over and over and over, I would have a contract. And so there's a bunch of groups like on Facebook for pilot moms, and they talk about their agreements and how to find a nanny and all that stuff. So there's a lot of support and guidance out there now.
I never hired a nanny, but one of my coworkers recently mentioned that he had hired a driver for his kids because him and his wife were very busy, and I thought that was an interesting concept as well to keep in mind.
So nothing.
No,
We're
no.
home. Perfect. Any other questions before I keep going? Oh yeah, go ahead. That's okay.
Hi. So family values are really important to me. And I just wanted, from your unique perspective of both being the mothers of families and pilots simultaneously, do you guys have any advice or tips and tricks on how to stay connected with the family and basically be the best husband that I could be and father while I'm out on the road and work's kind of taking me away from that family role?
As you're a dad, it's totally different. But the dads that I fly with, that I see that are really engaged and happily married, they're the ones that are, they might not be the head coach of their kids' 3rd grade basketball team, but they're the assistant coach. I mean, they're active and involved as much as possible when they're home. And that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah, I'm going to say that in today's world, there's no reason not to be super connected. Back when I started, I used to get to my hotel and then run downstairs and put money in a payphone or a card in the Sprint MCI thing to call home because it was too expensive to call from my room and I was a broke FO. These days with cell phones and FaceTime and virtual everything, I literally talk to every one of my family members every day, even when I'm in China or Tokyo, or I'm texting them on the airplane when I'm on rest, on break. So it's really easy to stay connected to your family if that's important to you. The guys that are divorced, I don't think they did that. And so if you have that value, then you're going to find out what works for you and your loved ones.
I think Kim's been waiting. I'm gonna let her jump in.
All right. But I can tell you what I really appreciated about my child's pilot dad. Well, my husband, he's pilot and he travels. But what I really appreciate when he's away and he stays connected is that he listens to some of the things that I'm going through with some of the kids. My 14-year-old that might be wanting to run away or whatever drama that's going on. And he listens, takes a deep breath with me. How are we going to handle this? Comes home. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let me talk to that 14-year-old or whatever. I mean, it gets tough through different age periods for the kids, but the communication is so important and listening.
I would say, first of all, good question, because most of the people, I shouldn't say most of the people, some of the people I fly with, you can tell when they have an interest in what their kids are doing when they're not there, when they're, they're invested outside of that, whether it's coaching or anything like that. So just having that thought process already is key right there. So then, because you're already going to make the time, you're going to work around your work schedule to make sure that you stay connected with your kids. So that's the first part, was just being aware and wanting to have that connection with your kids or future kids.
And my husband wasn't able to commit to being a coach or an assistant coach, but that's okay. Just the involvement, the showing up at games when he is available, very important for the kids and the wife. I think that thinks it's important.
And I think that ties in really well to what Mara said earlier too, where she was saying, don't come home and immediately say, I got to go do this. I got to do this. So maybe on those phone calls, don't just brag about all the cool things you got to do, but listen to their day too and how challenging that can be. I think that tied in really nicely.
The other thing is with the husband and the wife, the pilot, the non-pilot, or pilot and pilots, when one's home and the other one's gone and the kids are a little older and say they want to do something, they know which parent to ask to get the permission kind of thing. And that was always difficult with us, because I'd say, ask your dad. And they knew the answer before. It's going to be no for him, probably yes for me. So you got to kind of set the rules with the kids. If I'm not home, he's totally in charge. And if you can't get hold of him, then call me. But he's within 5 minutes of you. You should be asking him. So,
and to support each other in the decisions when you don't have time to talk about things, and to trust that, hey, they are watching the kids. They're doing it their way, but it's not my way, but it's still going to be okay. And they're going to survive that. And to let it happen.
And this is a response to you and Nate. My observation as I've gotten older is that your generation is completely different than my generation, the males, because the old guys, myself included, they mostly had stay-at-home wives. And I think my husband had a tough time being married to me, working. And just to give you an example of the type of guys I used to fly with, when they'd say things like, well, who's watching your kids? And I'd say the nanny. They'd say, is she cute? And true story. What I find now with the next generation of pilot that I fly with is they have completely different values, and they're like you. They're thinking about their kids. They're thinking about work-family balance. They're thinking about how they could be better family members instead of that old guy I used to fly with.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So we've kind of touched on a couple of my last few questions, but I'm gonna ask them a little bit more outright. What specific changes or sacrifices did you make for your careers or for your families? I know you guys both said you tried to be more senior and maybe didn't accelerate in your career as fast as you could have. Is there anything else that maybe you specifically focused on in your career and made sacrifices with your family, or vice versa?
I think we've already said it in my case. I bypassed upgrading so I could be number one in the right seats. And that really worked for years and years and years for us. Certain airplanes I didn't fly because they went to the West Coast and back. And then I got back at 2 a.m. I like to go to the East Coast and back, get back at 11 p.m. So those are the sacrifices I made.
In addition, I also signed up to be a commuter my whole career, because in my mind, since my husband wasn't a pilot, and they tell us pilots can live anywhere, I just followed him around. And I've been commuting most of my career, and it sucks. So the best, easiest thing that can be done, I think you mentioned it, is live in domicile. That will make your life much better no matter what your gender, because you're going to have more time at home.
I think the biggest sacrifice my husband made, giving up his career to be home with the kids. Because I don't know if necessarily coming into management was necessarily a sacrifice, because it still worked and I could still do that. And honestly, it's been a really good balance for me. I mean, there's all sorts of different things and decisions that you'll have to make throughout your career, depending on what you want. Like right now, the airplane that I'm flying, I gave up 4 opportunities to upgrade to captain because I enjoy the airplane that I'm on and the mission that it does. But having the option for different bases or whatever base I want doesn't change my aircraft that I'm on. Things like that are things that you don't necessarily have to sacrifice because we're trying to have a little bit more of a family work-life balance, if you will. So those kind of decisions, I think I'm blessed with, that I don't have to make some of those hard choices. But if I went anywhere else, I know I definitely would. So I give, kudos to my husband, because I think he gave the biggest sacrifice there when it came to our kids. So,
so after I got out of the Air Force, flying helos, I decided I wanted to stay home with the kids, but I thought, I'll get a pilot job. I missed flying. I wanted to fly. I applied at Sikorsky for a test pilot job. I thought about Customs and Border Protection, Black Hawk job, even helo tours. Oh, you can fly for hours, but we don't pay our pilots. No, I'm not going to do that. But I thought about different possibilities. But then I thought it would, even flying in the reserve unit over here at Patrick, because I was local here in Florida, but it was too much time away from the home. It was what I didn't want. So I didn't feel like it was a sacrifice. I felt like it was an educated decision, part of a team, my husband and I, and he was going to travel. I was going to stay at home, and I needed the 9-to-5 job. So when I interviewed to get that flight safety job, I was assured with 9 to 5 hours, but I was worried because they run simulators around the clock sometimes. And when they need that simulator to go, then, they'll schedule. But I had a good boss. I kept good communication with my boss, and that's ultimately the key. So was it a sacrifice? It was an educated sacrifice, I would say. But I do miss the flying for sure.
How about from the family perspective, missed holidays, birthdays, anniversaries?
Yes. So I did think about talking about that, and I forgot to mention it. So one of the first things when you interview, just through my husband's experience, when you interview at a cargo location, they might invite the spouses there. They did for me when my husband got his job. And the chief pilot said, well, when we have to move cargo, usually around the holidays, when you're not going to see your spouse, usually around the holidays. So that's a sacrifice that either the male pilot or female pilot in the family is going to definitely give up for the family. But one Christmas we had my husband at the head of the table on an iPad, Skype, and the rest of the family was around the table, and he had his time off, his crew rest away, but he was with us. And so technology really helps with that type of sacrifice.
Anybody else?
I've been with Delta for 31 years, and I've flown on Christmas 3 times. The first time was coming off furlough. I took my husband with me on a 4-day trip. The second time when I was a brand new captain and I had to fly over Christmas, and I was in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I remember thinking to myself, gosh, the only good thing about flying over Christmas is captain buys dinner. Guess who got to buy dinner? And then the last time I flew over Christmas was 2 years ago when I was a brand new 330 wide body international captain, and I was in Paris, France. And my kids are grown and gone and left. And of course, they gave me a hard time for not being there for Christmas, but I was in Paris. So I did send photos. Again, that was the seniority choices that I made. And other than that, I've been pretty lucky to not fly over holidays. And that was our choice.
I mean, not going to lie, holidays are sometimes tough. One of the great things that I've worked out with, my extended family, and my husband's extended family, is that Christmas doesn't have to be on December 25th. You can move it and make it work with your schedule, however that works for you. And so we've done that sometimes. I mean, I've spent how many overnights in Teterboro on, Christmas Eve. But yeah, usually the captain buys dinner, so that's always nice. But so when I come home though, then we have our own celebration, and it doesn't matter. You've got your own holiday celebration. So sometimes, yes, missing out on things like that. We really try to make sure that all of our crew members, if there's like a wedding or important events and stuff like that, we tell them, reach out to scheduling in advance. If there's something really, really important that you need to be home for, we want to try to make that happen. I've heard stories after stories of pilots of, things have happened in their family life and things like that. And we'll just send them home on the business jet and say, go take care of your family. If it's, like a major event, or, we actually had a captain that was out and his daughter was in gymnastics and she fell off the balance beam and hurt herself really bad. And they said, take the jet, go home, get back to your base. So stuff like that to balance that family life. And then obviously holidays, you can bid for things like that and try to have that schedule, but it doesn't, the more junior you are, obviously you're going to fly a lot of holidays, and do that, but you can manage your life and your other holidays when you're home. So
That's awesome. Wow.
I've been really, really fortunate. I've never missed a Christmas. I've never missed a Thanksgiving. I have missed maybe a birthday or two. She's raising her hand.
About Valentine's Day.
And I've missed a couple like school events, like a recital here and there. I was there for we had kids that played travel sports. Every weekend I was there, wherever we were going, I was doing it. So I have been fortunate. I thought I was missing Easter last week because I forgot it was Easter, the bit around it, but I got home by 11 a.m. So
Perfect.
I didn't miss Easter.
I think next year we got to bring the kids up, right, to help answer the
We'll tell the
questions.
No, but I work for a cargo company. December is our biggest month.
Right.
I never guarantee, like when my in-laws or my relatives want to say, well, what are we doing this year for Christmas? I'm like, I don't know. I might work for UPS,
Right.
but it always seems to work out. I'm senior, so I get pretty much what I want.
Perfect. Okay, so, and I think, Megan, you've already touched on this a little bit, but have you guys ever felt mom guilt? Do you feel mom guilt? How did you handle it in the moment?
She's making eyes at me. No, I have not felt any mom guilt. I don't think so.
I do all the time, but so do my other girlfriends who aren't pilots. I think and so do my stay-at-home mom friends. They feel guilty because they don't contribute financially. I think it's just something that I feel, and what I tell myself is that it's a worthless feeling because it's not doing me any good. It's not doing the family any good. So why am I beating myself up?
And women sometimes do that. It's inherent sometimes. I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I should be doing this. Or don't second guess yourself.
The grass is always greener.
Right. And you do need to take care of yourself and your needs to be the best role model and the best, role model, mother for your children. And guilt doesn't help.
I think we're always constantly reevaluating everything we're doing, right? I mean, that's part of being human. That's part of just the process of growing and maturing in your career and in your family life. For me, like, I know I've felt that mom guilt, but then I come back and I'm like, you know what? I think my kids will be, in the end, when they get older, because again, they're still young, that they'll be, proud of what I've accomplished and still managed to do, and encourage them to follow their dreams with what they want to do without feeling guilty. Because I think it's everywhere, and I think it's kind of a pointless feeling, because I think I would also feel guilt if I had stayed home all the time, or if I was on the road. No matter what I'm doing, you're going to feel guilty for something. But it's always at the end of the day, like, am I doing the best I can for my kids? Are they thriving? Are they doing well? Are they maturing to some extent? And getting that kind of encouragement as they grow and as they see you successful in your career. So I think that's more important than feeling guilty for the fact that you're doing what you really wanted to do, and just blazes the path for them in the future.
And one day when you get recognized as a cool mom, it overcomes all the other guilt that you might have ever felt.
Even with the minivan.
And I will say, I have a middle schooler, and I've gotten that label in the last year. I'm riding that as long as I can, probably until she's 20. Awesome. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to open it back up for questions. So, and this I think is a great way for us to finish up, is how has your job positively impacted your family? Are there any unique opportunities your kids have had to experience as a result, or your spouses or other members of your family, because of kind of what you do and what you've done?
Yeah, I could
Why am
start
I
with,
always going first?
okay, I can start with that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so when the kids were younger and I was following my husband, he was flying a CRJ, we got to tour the hangar. The kids got to pull up the mic and say, tray tables must be, they got to really see up close and personal the airplane. I have helicopter friends on a Boy Scout camp. I put in a request for community outreach. The helicopter came in and blew everybody away, and was able to land and do a demonstration there. That was really good. So there are unique opportunities among your networked friends that your kids can take advantage of. I heard somebody else saying that they were able to fly standby, go on trips, travel. That's an opportunity as well. They get to see way too many air museums because that's our interest. They go to Sun and Fun, they go to air shows. That's a unique opportunity as well. So plenty of good opportunities there. Going to say the travel, obviously. My kids have traveled since infancy and been all over the world, including London and Paris. I took my daughter to Paris, just us two girls, when she graduated from high school, and we were at JFK waiting for our flight. And I saw an Airbus 380, which is this huge airplane taxiing by. So I ran over to the window. And I said, Hannah, come here. Look. So she comes running over. She goes, what? I said, look, it's a 380. She goes, Mom, you are such a geek. But the travel, I think they don't even, for a long time, they didn't realize, what a cool thing that is. But now when she tells people all the places she's been, like Greece and on and on, I think she's appreciating the experiences she had because her mom was a pilot.
The biggest one is the travel, exposing them to the rest of the world, and not being afraid to do it by themselves. Just like 2 weeks ago, we were supposed to go to Ireland on a family vacation, and my mom got too sick to go. And so my other daughter had to go to Ireland by herself, because the trip was paid for. I'm like, well, you're going. And she's like, okay, and not many 22-year-olds would think about just going off to Europe by themselves. The other thing is, as women pilots, not just pilots, but women who do something different, we're showing our children that you could be anything. Nobody told me when I was 8 years old when I said I wanted to be a pilot, that I shouldn't be a pilot, that women aren't pilots. Not one person told me that. I think maybe when I was like 18, I got a glimpse that maybe I'm not supposed to be a pilot, but nobody said you can't do it. So if anything, we're all telling our children that you could be anything you want to be. Yes.
Everybody has obviously touched on the travel because that's the biggest benefit. Just showing my kids that they can go anywhere, they can do anything, they can be whoever they want to be, they can travel abroad and not be afraid of it. I can already see, even though they're young, that they're already so much more independent because we wanted to give them those experiences and let them make their own decisions with what they want to do as they grow up. We're taking them to England for the first time next month, so I'm super excited to show them around there. They're dual citizens too, to give them a chance to be able to study abroad if they want to. So just having those kind of opportunities that a lot of kids that they know have never even been on an airplane before. Like everything for them is planes, trains, and automobiles. Like everything is anything with wheels, if it moves, they're all into it. But they're starting to recognize aircraft and things like that. Like be like, oh, there's mama's airplane, like they'll say stuff like that. It's super cute. I love that. So like some of the pictures that were up there, I showed them the airplane that I'm flying now, and they just soak it all in. I can already tell that, technology wise, they're already ingrained. They're already up there, like moving around on the joystick and on the cursors. Like they're already into it. So we'll see what happens, what they choose to do with their future. But at the same time, like giving them that opportunity, giving them the chance to choose what they want to do. And the traveling is just amazing. My kids are totally spoiled because they think flying in the back of a business jet is normal. And it's not. So that's one of the things I love is I have ferry flight benefits with I can't use the caste system as far as airlines and things like that. but we have our own internal opportunities that we can fly in the back of our business jets. So I've taken our kids, like we've taken our kids on a week's long just vacation of just hopping around to different places, and they think that's normal, but it's not. So they're a little spoiled, but giving them that opportunity and the chance to go different places and not be afraid of it and just try different things, I think is really important. So I'm trying to instill that in them as well.
And I'll put in a word for flight safety, a very supportive company. Just a couple of weeks ago, my son was talking with his buddy. Hey, can we go see the simulator? So I take them to see the $18 million simulator and how that it feels like you're flying. It's like an Xbox, but it's on motion. And they think that's kind of normal. Yeah, sure. Let me get it approved. And the boss is supportive. And I was able to expose them to the simulation as well. So that's something that not everybody's able to be exposed to.
Awesome. Do we have questions?
Anyway, I have a loud voice. Quickly, before the questions, Maura's children agreed to make videos talking about their life having a pilot mom. So we're going to show those real quick before we get into this.
She's not afraid at all.
I previewed them. They're good, I promise. So we're going to play those now.
Hi,
So
my name is Michael Schmidt. I'm one of Maura's sons. And getting asked what it was like to grow up with a mother that was a pilot is a question I've been asked countless times over the years. And to me, it's just my normal. I grew up in a community of female pilots and male pilots, and I didn't see it as any different. However, now, as I've gotten older, I realized that it was rare back then. And I think finally the industry is getting to a point where people aren't shocked when you say your mom is a pilot. They're more shocked that she flies a 747-8 now than she's a female, which is a good thing. And I hope that trend continues. Thanks.
That's pretty cool. I was gonna say, is there more? Oh.
That was my oldest. It's probably 3 of them.
Hi, I'm Kat Schmid, and my mom is Maura Schmid. I loved growing up with a mom for a pilot because not only did she tell me I can be whoever I want to be, but she also showed me that even though I'm a woman, I have endless opportunities.
Hello, students of Embry-Riddle. My name is George Schmid. My mother is Maura Schmid. Can everyone say hello to Captain Schmid for me? Thank you, class. Appreciate that. I'm here to talk to you about what it was like having a mother who was a pilot. Basically, we had a normal childhood. I mean, yes, she had a different job than other people. She was gone a little bit, but she was definitely the best mother I could ask for, easily, hands down. The greatest person. She's a get it done when it needs to get done right away. She doesn't like to procrastinate, and she's an incredible mother. Like, really did a really good job raising 4 kids. I don't know how she did it. As I grow up, I'm like, I don't know how I could handle having 4 kids in the future if I do. But she did an incredible job doing it, and she was the number one supporter in all of her kids' lives by far. Like, every sporting event we ever had, any success we had in life, she was our number one fan, and that's what makes a mother a mother. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I remember when I was in high school playing sports, she didn't care if we win or lose. All she cared about is to have fun, and that's how you should look at college. Just have fun, get your education, and get closer to your career jobs. That's how you all should handle it, and enjoy it while it lasts, because it'll be over before you know it. Trust me, definitely. But I'm just here to say hi, Mom. Hello. And thank you for everything. I love you very much, and have a good day.
Yeah. Did she record one? Nice. No, we got one more. As she visibly gets shorter.
my icing on the cake.
Yeah. Oh man. I think there was some. That was awesome. Oh, great. Okay, so I think we're gonna do questions that while he maybe tries to make that work. There's a question from the live stream. Where are we gonna get that from? Amanda's getting it.
No,
Okay.
so I can say it actually. From our live stream right now, someone is asking about pregnancy and pilot uniforms and any policies or anything like that. And Megan, you can probably address that. And I know Christina's got a background in that as well too, from the policy directives. So thank you.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a great question because believe it or not, my company didn't have a pilot maternity uniform until 2019. And now we do. It's just a big shirt that allows you to be pregnant. We also have a pregnancy jacket that's like a rental program. So that way you don't have to spend a fortune on a jacket during the winter months. You can borrow it from the company and then give it back when you're done. And then the pants is just a black pant with a big rubber or elastic part on it. So we do have a maternity uniform for our pilots at our airline.
Well, back in '94, we didn't really have a maternity uniform, so they tried to make me one. And instead of having like elastics, they did it with Velcro. So if you coughed or sneezed, like it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But all our uniforms are provided for. So if they're not going to give you one, you just wear whatever you want.
There you go, Megan.
So as I'm currently in this phase right now, so we just got all brand new uniforms like a year ago. So they have not started our maternity line yet. So they say it's coming, but it's not quite there yet. So basically what they told me is go find a pair of blue pants that fit you well, that are maternity, and they'll reimburse me for them. So our uniforms are all completely covered too, as far as cost, up to a certain amount, obviously not unlimited, but that was kind of the nice thing that they gave me. Anything you need, just go buy it and we'll reimburse you for that. So that was kind of the nice thing we're doing. When we were with our previous uniform, they had maternity pants and jackets and shirts. They were limited, but they were available at least. So yeah.
You didn't fly while you were pregnant, right?
Well, I did, but I was in the Air Force. They've had maternity uniforms for many years and all the different types of uniforms. I did have a flight suit, fit quite snug, and it also had Velcro on each side. So that's what I used.
I think we've got the last video, right? Okay.
Hi, my name is Karen Schmidt. I'm a senior here at Riddle, and my mother is Maura Schmidt. And growing up with a pilot that's a mom is very inspirational, as I'm in the same career field. So I just have somebody that's close to me that I can go for advice and to ask questions to and to help me guide me through my process. And because she's a woman, she shows me every day that it doesn't matter because I can do it too. Hi, my name is.
All right. That's awesome. I think maybe time for one last question before we wrap it up. Is there any questions?
All right, we do have one more on the live stream. Do any of your children want to be pilots? So I think we do have one of the
one, two.
I have a son Caroline's here, but my oldest is 28 years old. He's extremely successful deck officer on big ships all around the world. And he told me last year he wants to fly. So that's what he's doing on his rotation of days off. He's flying. So far this week he's flown 3 times.
Yeah, so I've always I get that question a lot, and neither one of my kids want to be a pilot, but I think that every pilot I know has the bug. You either have it or you don't, because if I had a buck for every person who told me I wanted to be a pilot, but I'd have a lot of money, right? So you either have that bug or you don't, and my kids just didn't get it.
I guess we'll see. Not sure yet, but Kim was mentioning with the simulators, since I'm in the training department, I have access to simulators and things like that. So I've taken my boys into the simulator, and oh my goodness, they were like literally kids in a candy store. Our older of the twins by 2 minutes He has this thing where he gets so excited, his whole body just goes rigid. And he was doing that in the entire time he was sitting in the seat, just like, oh my gosh. So there's maybe a bug, but we'll see as they develop. So.
I have two teenagers, well, an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old. And I'd say that, yeah, I did expose them each to the simulation when they were younger. And my son may have the bug. He wanted to go to the simulator last week, and he is joining the Coast Guard. And so there's some possibility there that he may be able to fly. And when he turned 17, I did get him a discovery flight, and that was a lot of fun. He plays the Xbox, War Thunder, all these games that you fly with the controller. I don't know how you use that controller, but so we had him do the discovery flight, but we said, make it hard on him, teach him how to fly a pattern. Don't make it easy and fun. Right. And so it was a lot of fun watching him. We watched the instructor fly perfect patterns, and then we watched him go to base to final, and he totally missed final. And we asked him afterwards, so how was it? Well, it wasn't as easy as I thought, because he had some envision of it being pretty easy because he flew the Xbox. Now my daughter doesn't seem to have the bug. We offered a discovery flight. It's not yet taken me up on it, but we'll see. And it's something that it's hard to understand as a parent who's had the bug. Are they going to want to fly? I can't see why not, because it's so fun and I love it. But I've had to just come to grips with and understand that not everybody's the same, and it's okay not having a bug. You have a bug for something, and you have a passion for something, and it's just as long as you try to make a career out of that, it's really good.
Awesome. There's also, I've noticed, flying for UPS for so many years, nobody years ago had a child that was flying or was interested in it, and now every single time I go to work, somebody else is. My son's going to North Dakota, or I've got one thinking about Embry-Riddle or Southern Illinois. Everybody's got kids flying now. It's really, really amazing the difference between, 20 plus years ago and now.
And there's many jobs and many opportunities that people might not think about with many different organizations. The airlines is one path, the military is another path, corporate, and then everything in between, helicopters. There's many different opportunities there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. Can we have a round of applause for our amazing panelists? And I think we'll be sticking around for a little bit for if you guys want to say hi or whatnot. But thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you to Michelle for organizing this and Amanda for being her right-hand woman, because they have done an amazing job. And I've just been reminded that the plane pool is in 30 minutes if you guys want to go watch or check that out.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. And I want to wish everybody the best for their future.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.